8:03 on June 29th. This is the Public Works Subcommittee of the RTM, the regular meeting, being called to order. Thank you all for coming this evening. We have, everyone has the agenda I sent out a couple of days ago. We're pretty much going to follow the agenda. I have no announcements. Everything we're going to cover is on the agenda. I circulated the minutes to the May 25th meeting. Jeff, thank you very much for those. Are there any thoughts, comments, concerns, questions on those? If not, I'll take a motion to approve the minutes of May 25th.
Move.
Rolf, second. Jeff? That's it. All in favor? Okay. Opposed? You in or?
Sorry, I missed it.
Approve the minutes?
Yeah.
Unanimous.
I'm abstaining.
Oh, yeah, I was looking. All right, so one abstention. The next item I had was, we're going to roll right into, I just put the focus groups on the agenda. Some of the areas have a fair amount to discuss. Some of them don't. I have no reason to do anything other than take them in order. I have no update as it relates to budget and finance. I mean, we just went through the budget at the last session.
Oh, let's go through it again.
What fun is it was?
Just a recap.
Yeah.
Let me just pull my minutes. Okay.
I was joking, Mark.
I wasn't going to.
Just to be clear.
Let's see, roads and sidewalks. Ian, anyone have anything to add there? I didn't have anything to cover there. Okay. I did notice paving continues.
Patrick.
Yeah, I raised it at I think at the end of our last meeting or the meeting before, and we don't have to do it at this meeting, but at some point, I would, given that the pedestrian, I forgot what the name of that subcommittee was.
Infrastructure Advisory Committee.
Yeah, the advisory committee has been sort of disbanded, or at least put in abeyance. I think, given the amount of traffic in town, both pedestrian as well as vehicular, I think it would behoove this committee to resurrect some form of that, to look at what the plan is and have a better understanding of what our sidewalk plan is, because I personally just see an awful lot of people walking on roads that I think that we should be addressing.
I would agree with that.
So,
considering I'm one of those people
Yeah, I am
walking
too.
on the road.
would the starting point be to refamiliarize ourselves with the existing plan that was put in place, or?
Was there ever a plan?
Yeah,
yes.
that's what that,
Yes.
remember we
Probably
went
over
through,
a
there was like
decade
a
old.
map and it was
Could be close.
highlighted, but it was old.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe it makes, I'm just going to throw this out there, maybe it makes sense to, if not refamiliarize ourselves with it, at least BEGO can be refreshed as to when it was issued, and then get an understanding as to how the DPW utilizes that in its annual planning.
Yeah, it is still
This
on
is
the.
a starting point.
It is still on the website, because
Yep.
when we talked about it last time, I remember looking it up and looking through it, so it's definitely on the town website if anyone.
And this involves not the maintenance of sidewalks, but the
Creation
installation
of
and
new
creation of new
sidewalks.
sidewalks.
Yeah,
Correct.
It seems every year, at least that I've been involved with this committee and even with the RTM, Ed, who does a phenomenal job, and I don't mean to question any of his judgment on this topic, there is a replacement plan and an extension plan,
Okay.
but it's never clear how that's decided. And again, not that his decisions are wrong, it's just, I'm not sure what the plan is. And in the category of true confessions, I haven't refamiliarized myself with that plan that's on the website. I have to go back and look at that.
Would you be willing
When we
to
met,
pull it off?
Sure, yeah.
Circulate it maybe, or actually go find, or send the link?
I'll send the link around so that everybody
Yeah.
knows. But, and I don't want to jump start anything here if the body's not in favor, but I just think that I think we have to do something.
And you've raised this a couple of times, and a couple other folks have.
Okay.
Why don't we, if you'd be willing to, let's at least revisit it.
Sure.
And I'll put it on the agenda for next meeting
Yeah.
to go through high level what the conclusions were, what the recommendations were. Not at a granular level necessarily, but was there enough there that 8, 9, 10 years down the road, Ed could conceivably still be following it at some level?
Right,
We just don't
maybe it's-
understand.
Maybe it's
That
done.
it- Or maybe, well,
And we
Well,
can-
what the
I'd be surprised if
what
it's
the
done.
priorities are anyway,
Yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
expansion.
What the governing
Replacements are
principles were.
replacements, that's,
Yeah.
But it, like with the roads, you went through with us how there's a budget and they just do as many roads as they
Right.
get for,
Right.
roads divided by amount of cost of asphalt, and that's it.
Right.
I don't know what it is with sidewalks.
It's
Like
It's
not like
it's
it was-
very complicated.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's complicated because you're dealing with private property to some
State
extent.
property.
State property when we get to
Yeah.
124 and 106.
Oh,
Correct.
okay.
And,
Those are state.
and then it always seems to veer toward what's going on up at Talmadge Hill. And seem to get sidetracked. Not that that's not important, but there's a whole town here. And there are people walking other than just to the trains. So I think that revisiting it and understanding what the overall plan is, and
Yep.
and maybe it's fine, maybe we don't have to do anything.
And we have significant new developments since the
Yeah.
plan was put in place.
Exactly.
That
What
is
was the
true.
name of that group again?
That
Was
was-
I think it was the
Pedestrian
Pedestrian
Advisory.
Infrastructure Advisory Committee.
Yes.
I may have that wrong.
Sounds good.
Yeah, if it
It's
should
not
have
an
been,
acronym,
that's what it
it's
should have
not.
been named.
There's an S in there somewhere, that Pedestrian Infrastructure
Select.
Safety Advisory. Safety was in, the word safety was in there somewhere. It might have been PSAP.
It sounded to me like when we met with Ed, though, he didn't want to like make public his plan at the
Yeah.
beginning of each year
Yeah,
because
that's
he
exactly
can't, he can't promise and then not deliver. Like that's
Same with the roads, though.
exactly. So, but to have an idea of the priority level, I think would be, but the thing is, some of the priorities, even if they're up here, might not be possible because they're state land and it's like stuck in red tape. And so he has to skip down sometimes if he has the people and the materials, right? Is
Yep.
how I
And the
understood it.
cooperation of the
And
people who are affected.
Who are living there, all of that, like.
Yeah, remember what we had to do?
Yeah, just the easements we had to go through
On
with the
West
road
Avenue.
and West Avenue and the Roden Avenue project.
Right.
Okay, there were numerous easements.
And it
And
was
even after
costly.
we approved them, it still took Ed a long time to get all those
Sure.
finally done.
I'm sure it's
Yeah.
like not.
But that was also an easement, not that we have to keep going here, but not that, that's an easement to get the rights to use it. This is, there are all kinds of ways to encourage people to even put sidewalks on their own property. And,
Oh, really?
you know, oh yeah, I mean, there's tax incentives you can do. There's all kinds of things that we can do as a town to try and encourage that. There's costs and benefits to all of it, but,
The other thing, I think the state in their last session passed some sort of legislation that was targeting about road safety and how sidewalks come into play per se with that. I don't know exactly, but I know they allocated funding for improving road safety.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so there might be something there.
Okay, so next step there, it will be on the agenda next meeting. And if you're willing to pull it off, and maybe give a high
We'll do
level
so.
refresh
Yep,
of what was accomplished. And so do the.
I will do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Sewer Commission, no Ed, no Frank, no Vince.
Wow.
We'll move on.
I would just mention briefly that this time of the year, they will be looking at the sewer rates for the coming year. And they'll be setting those rates conceivably in the next meeting, if not the one after that. And so it'll be interesting to see how that's going to work out. Because, they've been working on trying to improve the sewers, to reduce the INI, to send less water to Stanford, to try and finally get to the minimum, rather than being in excess of the minimum, which costs us money. They haven't achieved that yet, but it'd be interesting to know how much closer we're getting, because they're about to go into phase 2 on that whole sewer improvement program, which would hopefully tighten things up even further. So I'm like,
And the reason
I'm
that-
hoping and waiting that 1 year they're going to meet, they're going to say, okay, we've gotten it down to the minimum. And that then gives them a much stronger position to then negotiate with Stanford about the rates that we got.
Which is next year.
Okay, yeah, he's got a contract coming up, that's right. So,
He's probably starting to negotiate it
so
ahead of the
there are
next
some
July.
moving parts there, so to speak.
Bridges and dams, infrastructure.
Well, I don't know if anybody had a chance to listen to Ed's presentation, which was just last week, but he did speak about both the Anson Road Bridge and the Rings End Dam.
Right.
And apparently he's making progress, particularly with the dam and FEMA, to where they may even get funding for, maybe not the entire amount, but a good portion of it. He kind of implied that that was a possibility. But there's still a lot of planning going on. They're not ready to go to work yet.
Very interesting, well, depending on your perspective, interesting definitions of what FEMA considers.
Right.
it-
I forget the word.
Yeah, I forgot the word too.
This is mitigation and.
There you go.
Mitigation, very
There you
good.
go, mitigation. Thank you, Ian.
Mitigation and repairing. And
Yeah.
FEMA thinks anything in addition to repairing what was there is, I don't know, it's very definitional, but I agree, it sounded as though.
The only question I have is, I never heard any final conclusion on who owns the dam. Okay?
I didn't hear a conclusion, but I remember a prior presentation to the Board of Selection that said that they were going to use, it's the wrong term, but I'll call it eminent domain. They were just going to kind of claim
Essentially,
it.
yeah.
Because they couldn't find any of the heirs of the people that we struck the lease with 80, 100
Many years ago.
And they tried, and they're like, so we can just kind of claim it, and they'll have like 60 days to object. And that was longer than 60 days ago, so.
Yeah, I just don't know what was the final conclusion. Was that in fact all executed as you described it? Does the dam now,
Again, as best I can
does
tell.
the dam now officially belong as
Sorry,
an asset of the town of Darien?
I am.
Oh, you are, okay, phew.
You are.
Did you want that?
Just didn't hear it.
Should we start over?
Yeah, start over.
So this dam is where? This
This is the Rings End Bridge Dam.
As you,
oh, okay. That's a dam.
It's actually
the
Gorham,
iconic ring.
Yeah.
it's the Gorham Pond
Yeah,
Dam over which the Rings End Bridge.
And this was probably constructed 100 years ago or something?
Well, and it's
Yes.
been rebuilt at least, I can
A
think
number
of
of
twice.
Okay.
I think the issue is the town owns the dam and the road, but apparently the dam is built, or the bridge is built on footings, and we don't own the footings, or something to that effect. We
Right.
build parts, but not other parts, and I may have the
The
facts.
footings of the dam help support the bridge.
Something that, yeah.
You know, and the bridge we own, but the dam, again, last time I heard was they were pursuing it, but I don't know that there was any conclusion.
To figure out who owns
The town, well, to figure out who owns it and whether or not we would take action.
And who's
if we
responsible
couldn't
for
get-
fixing it?
Right.
Right, exactly, because if we're gonna spend, or we're gonna try and get FEMA to pay for it, I think they're gonna certainly wanna know.
I
who
heard
owns
some,
it.
at least $1.5 million.
Yeah.
What's wrong with it?
It's leaking.
It's always leaking.
It's leaking.
It's kind of what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
The footings are,
And it's crumbling.
the footings are crumbling,
So we
which
have to
is
do
what
a
started
$1
the
million
whole
study
ownership.
first, though? Let's study it first.
Well, that's required by state law.
So, I don't know, I don't have an answer, but I haven't heard either that it's really been finalized per se in that regard.
The ownership issue.
The ownership, yeah, who owns the dam?
Not the dam, the portion of the dam that.
So the land and the footings.
The land and the footings under the
Yeah,
bridge.
when it was built, we don't know who owns it.
Let's see, the waste facility, recycling center.
I don't have any updates, but I did not watch all of their last meeting yet, so. Wait, are we on that already? Oh, that's with the sustainable, that's all together.
Yep.
Okay, so yes, so, but nothing to report. They'll be closed for 4th of July. Make sure you have your new updated dump pass by today.
Is that
or
effective tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
July
Yeah,
1?
tomorrow's the end of the month.
I know.
You got that massive billboard down there to remind you, in case you're.
Every day.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all I got for now.
All right. On the flooding, I got a couple of things, and then Pat and Rolf and Ian, you can add on to it. I did grab, because at the Board of Selectmen meeting in May, it was 2 meetings ago, actually the night of our full RTM meeting, they put forth they adopted a flooding policy intended to, in theory, govern or guide
Yeah.
how to prioritize
That's
projects.
the video you sent?
Yes.
Yeah, I watched that.
Yep. So I did grab a copy of it, because there were some tweaks to it from what
Okay.
was presented at the meeting. If anyone needs it. I
It
can-
seemed very reasonable, I mean,
It did, but, you know, I guess the main bullets were, whatever's considered should do no harm upstream or downstream.
right,
The vagary is the reasonable number of properties that
Right.
was approved, so someone's gonna be an arbiter of
What's
reasonable
reasonable,
relative,
yeah.
presumably to cost, I guess that's what's
Right.
relevant, reasonable. Real improvements, and the genesis of that one I remember from the flooding studies, after Superstorm Sandy. Those, I think there were 4 flooding studies commissioned there, and one was very extensive on this watershed here, and was it Stony Brook? Stony Brook, right? And it was gonna take some huge amount of improvement and just a few inch marginal difference.
Yeah,
And so that's,
from the study. that-
yeah. Now, I remember that being one of my big takeaways, because those were the first studies in my time on the different committees.
So the conclusion in that situation was not to go forward with the project because the cost didn't justify the results.
The area,
That makes sense.
the area that was that encompassed, that was impacted, to make a meaningful difference on that much area, there wasn't anything that you could do to make a meaningful difference, and the cost to do it was going to be outrageous. So that's what that one's about. And then,
But as an offshoot from that examination, if you will, there was a kind of a semi-conclusion that the town would continue though to help aid people whose homes have been continuously flooded
right.
over and over and over again, and who did qualify with FEMA, that the town would help assist them to get out of their homes so they could move on with their lives.
and in the ensuing 10-plus years, there's been a number of projects on the FEMA side. The town would work with the homeowner to pursue the FEMA grants or aid. Several houses over here, the Cherry, have been raised as in elevated. I don't think any have been raised. It's the other raised.
Raised with an AI.
There's one house that was taken down on Chevy.
There was one, yes.
Yeah.
And then there've been a number of projects over the years where changes or expansion to the existing stormwater drainage system made a material impact on the flooding and roadways for access purposes, or actually mitigated or eliminated flooding to their homes. So, as Rolf suggested, there have been a number of projects, they were referred to at the time as low-hanging fruit that came out of that study. Making a major improvement was overwhelming, but several projects have been pursued over the years. Let's see, so Ed did a presentation on the 19th, I circulated that. I thought that was a pretty good presentation. I don't know if anyone wants to kind of cover that, anything you want to touch on that?
Well, before we go on to that, the one last comment I'd like to make though about the policy is when the Board of Selectmen was going over the various points of this policy, the question did come up about, well then, at the end of the day, isn't some of these judgments subjective in nature? And they pretty much all agreed, yeah, that there's a lot of subjectivity in making these decisions. So they concluded that it would have to be approached with these guidelines in mind, but also on a case-by-case basis, taking into consideration the particular circumstances of each and every one to make a decision, which I was happy to hear.
Holistic, but also based on expert evaluations.
Yeah, so That's what we should be looking for.
Yeah. We can only be like cost benefit, right? I mean, what would it cost and how many people does it benefit? There is no formula, it's just a case.
But they resisted trying to define that ratio of cost benefit.
Yeah, they didn't.
That's hard to define.
That's hard to do.
Yeah.
That's where the
Then
whole
you can box
subjectivity
yourself out.
conversation came up.
It's like, I'll know it if I see it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I just got distracted at the game I was talking about. There's
Beef
hailing. No, it's hailing. Of course.
Yeah.
The field head looks like snow. I don't want to distract us, but yeah. So anyway, little weather delay.
So, yeah. So Ed, I thought, made a very detailed, per se, I mean, given the amount of time he had, and comprehensive presentation on a number of projects that are whatever, flood related, drainage related. And I was happy to hear that they had decided to get an update. I would have liked to have seen it publicized a little bit more, so that, you know, people were more aware that he was going to be doing that presentation, and would have had a chance maybe to. I was there when I went to the meeting.
The salt box one?
That was a long meeting. There were a lot of topics on that meeting.
Yes, there were.
Oh, that works like.
That particular
Yeah.
course, like,
Yeah.
yeah, so it didn't lend itself much to, because there were other things on the agenda that didn't really lend itself well to other people being able to, you know, ask any questions and that sort of thing. So I held off from saying anything just so I could take in all of what he covered, which was quite a bit.
He covered, the things that he covered that I wasn't expecting that I thought were terrific was, he covered, the DPW for years has gotten requests when there's a stormwater event about my stream is overflowing, my river is
yeah.
overflowing, what can you do,
What do you
what can
do?
you do? And I've heard him over the years, and he reiterated, the town does not go onto private property. But he did give some recommendations as to what property owners can do. I won't get into it here, but I thought that was interesting. Because folks aren't aware that DPW doesn't go on your property.
Right, but they are going to initiate a program where twice a year, you know, if you know you have a stream running through your property and there's a lot of debris that's been building up, you can't go in there with mechanized equipment, but if you can get in there and remove branches, leaves, anything that's going to go downstream in a high volume storm,
Or impede the flow.
or impede the flow, you know, you can remove that, and if you
They'll come get it.
can get it to curbside, they'll do a pickup, similar to, you know, how they have other pickups for other purposes. And they're gonna do that twice a year, both in the spring and the fall. And apparently, he's also engaged with a gentleman who works for EPC here at Town Hall to help, you know, guide people about what they can remove and what not to, anything that's really in the ground, like a tree stump that's really in the ground, you know, you can't remove something like that, okay, because that would require, in most probability, a mechanized piece of equipment, and again, that's not allowed with the water.
I had 3 comments on that particular section of his presentation. One was, if it's commencing this year, presumably it's in the budget, there's man hours that must have been allocated to it, and there's a cost.
Yeah. Yes.
And then 2, I'm always sensitive, well, it's an expansion of services, which is tremendous. It's a service that the community probably wants. But I'm also sensitive that a third of the community doesn't benefit from that, because roughly a third of the community's on private roads, or not public roads. And so it wouldn't shock me if some of the neighborhoods or some of the residents that need it the most aren't going to have access to that service, but it's a start.
And it's voluntary, so, you know, there's no one that's gonna make it a mandatory thing.
Right.
Is it a third of the roads?
I could be off, but it's in that
It's
25 to
substantial.
30%.
I didn't realize it was
Yes.
that high.
So what would their objection be? That
No, not an objection, they don't,
Just
if
don't
you have the,
They're in a private,
so in
So
on
the
private
DPW is
streets,
not gonna go on private.
yeah,
roads.
so but I don't know if it's a
DPW will
quarter,
not pick up stuff on a private road.
No.
just like we've got the leaf
They won't.
pickup.
I'm on a private road, they
Yeah.
won't.
So the town does leaf pickup,
Yeah.
bulk pickup,
I guess living on
Christmas
Salt
tree
Street, down road, I'm.
pickups,
spoiled.
plowing,
I don't
repair, street
understand
repairs.
what's with
About a
the
third
private roads.
Okay,
The
and
city,
they don't
third
service
residents
it anyway.
don't live on streets that benefit from that.
Because
So-
the town, there is a, I don't know if there's a tax benefit, I think there is a slight tax benefit to those.
I'm not
And
aware.
they also get a, as I understand it, they get an added ability to make certain rules on those roads. So.
Is there like a list of like what private roads like don't get and do get?
So like
somewhere?
Mary Ann,
I've tried to like look this up because I'm like, wait, you don't do the tree pickup, you don't do that. Like, I have to remove the snow on the road.
There's
Like,
not much
what,
you do get.
like, what are the benefits?
It's easier to look what you
And
do
like,
get.
who
Again.
decided it was a private road? Like, I
Oh,
really would
well,
like to know all of it, and I can't figure it out anywhere. Like, nobody seems to know. Like, there must be benefits if there are downsides to somebody. There
Benefits
has
have
to
not been apparent so far.
I think there is a tax benefit. I think-
Is there? I'd be curious.
I think there was.
Only if the road association is registered as a tax district. And I think there are only 3 tax districts in
be.
town.
We don't have a road association.
See, and so there's a tax district, a road association, and then not road association. So there's kind of different tiers of benefits.
Mama's gonna figure it out.
Anyhow, didn't mean to take us down. But anytime we talk about things, services like that, bear in mind, there's
Yeah.
a significant portion of.
Interesting.
Well, that's what I didn't realize it was that
It's a big number,
that is a big number.
yeah.
Where was that big?
So, anyway. Oh, and on the drainage projects, Rolf, I know, David, two are completed. Ed talked about, when asked by the Board of Selectmen.
Projects or studies?
Studies.
Studies, there's no projects completed.
Yeah, let the
Those cost money,
reflect studies.
real money.
At the public hearing that was held for Salt Box, the Board of Selectmen requested or asked what the timing on a similar presentation. I think he had committed to the next few weeks, I think July, was it?
He said, yeah, at this point, yeah, he could see coming to some date in July, but he didn't commit to a date.
So this is for Grove Street.
Okay.
For what?
This
Salt
is the study,
We do.
Joe,
We
the
did one on
study for
Salt Box.
Tilly Pond.
Tilly
Oh,
Tilly, yeah.
Pond, Corbin Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that
that
one-
is completed, although it's not yet been posted on the website. I've looked numerous times.
Well, that's the one with the estimated cost was much more than
Well,
Salt Box. It was
right, Salt Box was
No,
6.76
yeah,
to a little
7.
over 7. In the meeting, he mentioned a number for Tilly Pond, somewhere in the area of around 3.6.
No, 3.08 to 3.47 million.
Thank you,
Okay.
okay.
And then the
So
Salt
the
Box
whole,
is 3.
if those two packages are
That's
approved,
not over there.
you know, you're looking at, what, about $11 million.
Yeah.
So it's not nickel dime.
No.
And what's
And-
the other one that's outstanding?
Baker?
Bailey.
Good.
Bailey, that is
No,
posted on the
that's-
website, so.
Yeah, that's complete. Bailey is complete.
Okay.
And they've already
Studies.
met with the residents.
Studies.
Study's complete. And there's a meeting with residents scheduled in July.
Okay.
Right.
Is there a cost estimate on that? Is that $3 million too?
Nope, no cost estimate.
He mentioned in his presentation that there was about 3 homes that were
Oh, okay.
specifically affected. There was a lot of debris that was in the waterway, so that was part of the problem. And the other problem that we run into all the time is the cul-de-sac running underneath Metro North, which
Yeah.
was not able to convey all the water in those storms 2 years ago.
So at the end, there was a hesitation about whether or not to proceed with the early stages of the Salt Box.
They were going to vote on it in early July, right?
Yeah, in
Went
fact,
ahead and voted to proceed.
they voted to proceed on evaluating and
1A.
making a decision on the salt
Salt
box.
Box.
Yeah.
And in fact, this coming Monday's meeting has that precisely on the agenda.
So I was unclear what they would, the alternative to not proceeding, what were they waiting for? in the
Well,
Studies.
You know,
I don't think it was the public hearing on Grove. I was unclear what the alternative was being considered at the time.
well, I think they were unsure of whether to wait to hear all the details related to Tilly Pond, so they could look at
The big
the
picture.
totality of the various projects and monies involved, or to proceed with just, for now at least, just the salt box project in mind.
Right.
And in the end, they voted to proceed on the salt box, and that's coming up on Monday's meeting.
Not Monday the 3rd, is it?
Yes,
A meeting on the 3rd of July.
yes.
So they voted.
Should be well attended.
The
Yeah,
first
right?
stage.
Yeah, the first stage.
The cover attack.
Yeah,
Yeah, it seems like a Congress, Senate race.
They voted to proceed to the first stage of the salt box.
Well, no, I think what they're gonna do is, they're gonna pull up their criteria for approval, and they're gonna look at what was in the report on salt box. I assume that probably Ed will be present to help provide information, and then they'll make a decision, do we vote to go forward with this or not?
So, sorry, they're voting on Monday, that's the vote on Monday, but they also voted in the prior meeting, and what did they vote on?
No, what they voted on the prior meeting was
To vote on
whether to wait
Vote on.
for Tilly Ponds
Right.
and all that study
Or go ahead and
information
proceed.
and look at the two projects together,
Okay.
or proceed for now
What's
just
ready.
on
One that's
salt
most
box.
advanced.
Okay, and they agreed and voted to proceed
proceed.
on salt box. And
Didn't
that's
do
what's
anything
coming up
other
Monday.
than say we're
Yeah, all
gonna
they did
proceed.
was vote to proceed.
So the next meeting, they're gonna deliberate presumably on the front end aspects of what comes next. And there's a whole sequence of steps and approvals. And is that one an environmental approval?
Oh, yeah, there's gonna be, DEEP will be involved with that, the state of
That's right,
Connecticut,
you're going
Coast
into-
Road is involved with that.
Yep.
I mean, there's all kinds of
Because
easements.
Tilly's
that
gonna be
have to
even
done.
worse, because.
I'm sorry?
Tilly sounds like it's gonna be even worse, because it involves Metro North, which apparently they're the worst of all.
Yeah.
And add a year to your program
Yep.
time with them.
That's what you said, yeah.
Yep. So, yeah, these are not easy, simple things to do, and they take a lot of time.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the reason, let's go ahead and proceed and start doing the diligence.
Yeah,
and Start
right.
checking off some of the items. All right, so that's flooding and drainage. Anything else we want to touch on that? No. Sustainability, environmental, I got nothing there. Paige, do you have anything there?
No, I lumped that in with my other one, sorry.
Okay, coastal waters, I don't have anything.
I don't have any update.
I didn't follow the most recent meeting.
The people
I know that-
discussing the dredging is gonna happen.
Dredging is going to be a big deal, and I think they're trying to come up with some sort of plan to deal with the Great Island and all the boaters that come into Ziegler's Cove, and how they're worried about people are going to think, okay, we own the property now, so we can go on the island.
Go to the beach.
And- Yeah, right, hang out at the beach and all this sort of stuff, and the island's not ready for that, so they're trying to figure out how to deal with that.
Armed guards.
That's one approach.
Well, that's actually probably, we could roll right into the next topic, which is Great Island.
Borders.
So we all heard that the Board of Selectmen, I think there was an announcement, maybe the newsletter from the first selectman, that 45 people were interviewed. They've concluded the interview process, and they'll be announcing the 4 open seats at, I think, the next Board of
Yeah, I think
Selectmen.
that'll be in this coming Monday meeting as well.
A lot going on holiday.
The chosen people get to
Yeah.
show up on 4th of July weekend to get the
Or not.
Yeah.
tap.
When did you say they'd be announced?
I wrote here the 3rd.
I'm pretty sure it'll be in, yeah.
Yeah, I got here the 3rd.
Yep.
The same people voting for that.
There was an update at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, and there was also in the newsletter an update on some of the things that are going on at Great Island right now. They fall in the nature of remediation. There was, I think, oil tanks being removed, unclear how many and from where. There were some metal pipes or protrusions that have been eliminated, removed from. I was unclear if it was the dock or the
That beach area down there, that bulkhead that was
The
down there
bulkhead.
had essentially, rusted and rotted away, and it looked pretty dangerous.
Yeah, there were
Yeah.
former drainage pipes that had
Right,
sort of.
drainage pipes.
So
So
they
they
moved over.
And I think that there was at some point a bulkhead there that allowed for sort of a artificial pool to build,
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, that
which was purposely put in. It was
Yeah.
awesome,
Yeah.
but
Very cool.
it's now,
They got it.
dangerous.
Yes, so, and then the other thing I wrote down was that with regard to the area that's contaminated with arsenic.
found it.
couple
Also
different
affected-
methods of abating it were
That was
discussed.
Planning stuff, right?
But the one that's being pursued on a pilot basis, and I can't recall if it was a quarter acre or a third acre, is some sort of vegetation. The term I don't recall, but I remember one of the vegetation they're planting being arugula. I don't recall what the other one was, but apparently,
Arugula,
And a
sunflowers, and soybeans or something.
was it something?
Yeah, they eat arsenic.
None of which should be
Yeah.
consumed after.
And then I end up at Whole Foods.
In collaboration with Sweet Cream.
In your salad?
Sweet green is.
It's sweet green.
It's very sweet.
Sponsored by Sweet Green.
Anyway, so I found that interesting. It's proceeding. They've partnered with a firm. And then my
If it
takeaway
works,
was
it'll be
it works.
phenomenal.
Yeah, they're gonna do a test run, do some testing, and determine if it's working. So I found that interesting. So those, did anyone hear anything else that's being pursued? Oh, and I thought there was some study of road.
Yeah, I think they're trying to start some engineering on how to get a two-way road going.
Yep, so initial review.
Did anybody have a chance to see any of the planning and zoning?
I did.
I did, this is probably a good time to segue into that.
Uh-huh.
Let me just glance here. Yes, that was a continuation of the one from the 13th.
Yes, sir.
And the tone and the topics kind of just continued. There wasn't much.
Actually, the more recent meeting was much more civilized, shall I say, than the first meeting. The first meeting was contentious.
Yes.
I thought unnecessarily so, but that's just.
Well, okay.
And let's see, the high level, what my takeaway was that you have a group of homeowners or property association owners claiming that the existing activities there are not allowed and don't have any standing for continuing. I think the town has taken the position that it's gone on for so long that it is, that the permit's not, that it predates the zoning, the residential zoning, and should be allowed to continue. And I'm unclear, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm unclear why you need a permit if it's a permitted activity because it predates the zoning. So I'm not going to pretend that that's the heart of what seems to be debated.
I think you said that rather well.
Did I?
Yeah.
I think because I listened to it so many times.
Yeah, and both sides seem to be arguing the same point.
Yeah.
And that is that it predates zoning, which is
Who cares?
1925. But there's no way to prove that the operation has been in continuous existence without a 60-day
I think,
period
yes.
between 1925 and today. So I think it's a big mess, and it sounds, I don't know, I think it got continued off the June 20th meeting, and I think they're
It's exhausting.
they're
I
considering.
thought they were going to deliberate.
Yeah, they
Yeah, we're gonna
closed
deliberate.
that
They
hearing.
closed it,
Yeah.
but now they're deliberating.
Now they're deliberating on what they're going to decide as a planning
And
and
it
zoning
sounded as though the
commission.
homeowners, the Great Island Property Owners Association, of which nobody knows who the membership is, but that's not to say they don't exist, it's just they're not known. It sounded as though their attorney who was making the presentation may pursue other legal options.
Wait a second, aren't we the homeowners now, the town?
No, the
No,
other
but
homeowners
no,
on
the island.
that point. So the
Oh,
adjacent
not
homeowners
Great Island.
are claiming some level of standing to object to the application of having a commercial venture adjacent to their properties. And that's the standing that they're claiming. I'm not a lawyer, so that's the way I understood it.
So it was fine for 60 some odd years, but now they feel it may not be.
It's not okay.
One might argue that.
I think there's also a question of some easements relative to the road that leads
Correct.
Yes.
from Goodwives River
Because those
Road
easements,
to the island.
because the Great Island Property Owners Association are a party to those easements, or are claiming to be a party to the easements.
The cul-de-sac specifically,
Yes.
which is that loop
So
to gain access.
it's not a done deal.
There's some legal stuff there.
Yeah, they're gonna have to
Good way to
come.
put it, Mark. There's some legal
There's
stuff.
definitely some legal stuff, there's no question about it.
Yeah. Way out over my skis.
That's
on that.
technical term.
Yeah, the lawyer for the homeowners association did make some points that whether it's a permitted activity or not, and that seems to hinge on something you touched on, was what was the activity that was going on there all along? Was it commercial or not commercial? But whether it was a permitted activity or not, the point the lawyer made, whose name nothing, was that regardless of whether it's permitted, shouldn't some of the requisite studies be done anyway if they weren't done because it's a permitted activity, things like a parking plan, a stormwater abatement plan,
Coastal site plan.
Yeah. I, for one, thought some of those points were
I thought they were valid.
not without making a decision or a judgment on whether or not there's merits to the point they're making overall regarding permitted activity. I did think that was,
I would think that's already in the plan, though.
you would think, but no,
I mean, I think
there was silence to that point.
Well, and the reason it's, if I might, it's important to us as a committee is because this is a town property where these activities are going to take place. And we, as, advisors on that sort of activity, have to know. I mean, the traffic review was waived by the planning and zoning, the director of planning and zoning. Apparently, there's precedent for being able to do that.
Because there was no change in use.
There was no change in use, and so I guess they're allowed to do that. And the process for requesting input from other town departments is they send out a memo saying, anybody want to comment on this? Or anybody feel that and so it went to the fire marshal and the health department and, all the various departments. And only the health department and the fire department came back and commented, whereas other departments just didn't comment and didn't respond. So, I mean, that's the process. That's what they go through.
Yeah, I didn't take it as being unique, it's just.
No, it's just, so, to me, I agree with Mark. I think there were a number of issues that I think, if we don't, in this application, if they're waiving it, they have to be considered as the development of that property goes on.
Yeah, I mean, they can use that now, to say that the use is not going to substantially change, and they've waived a number of things using that. But when it comes time to open up to the public at large, it's a whole new ballgame.
I agree with that, Rob. As soon as there's any change to the use versus what's being done there now.
What is this homeowners association going to do when the whole
Well-
island is opened up to the public? I mean,
Well, that's
sort of a
what
lot
all
more
the,
traffic
that's what all the
than
legal
this.
people are trying to
That's more legal stuff.
come to terms with.
Yes, oh.
But you actually raise a good point, Ralph, again, and that is that because Steve Mulvaney, the chairman of the planning and zoning, actually said, could I go down there and take lessons now? Or have one window? And so, in a sense, it already is open to the public because the answer was, yes, a member of the public could go down and take lessons.
It has been actually.
And do.
And use that facility today and
Because
do
they pay
now.
rent, yeah.
So, it's a
But then the
very,
point seemed to be, but that's no different than the way it's been.
Right.
Yeah, it goes around and around and around.
Well, and I mean, as we think about Great Island and not just how we want to use it in the future, but how we get there and the economics involved, if my memory serves, the rent that the stable is paying is somewhere between a third and a half of the
Yeah.
revenue.
Correct.
It's substantial.
So it's
Yeah.
it's substantial.
Correct.
it's expensive.
That is
And if
true.
you shut it down, that's revenue that you've got to find other sources for to cover the bonds.
Correct.
But that's not a reason to just grant the license.
Agreed, it's part of the consideration.
Yeah.
It is.
In a different meeting, the most recent Board of Selectmen meeting, in the first Selectmen's update, I think is where it was. Some other activities that have taken place there that I didn't mention. Some signage has been put up, like I can't remember how many signs, private property. There was a reference to a number of surveillance cameras,
Mhm, yeah.
and then trail video, which I'm not sure what that is, but that
I think
quoted
it's like
something separate from.
trail cams, like
Trail cams.
like a
Motion
hunter would
activated or
use.
something.
Like a
Oh,
hunter would
okay.
use. My
Alright.
dad's a hunter, so
Is
I've
it?
heard
Okay.
of a trail cam.
Okay,
Yeah, so if a deer walks by, it'll take a picture
Yeah,
of
or
the
triggers
deer
it.
or a human
Or a-
okay, all right, so that would,
or a boat. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's an attempt probably to be aware of.
A teenager with a pack of, well,
Yeah.
Something they shouldn't have.
Tic Tacs?
Yeah,
Exactly.
I can think that.
Okay. We beat that pretty good. Anything else on that? Anyone else?
Well,
Yeah, alert your children.
you know, at our last meeting, we voted on the lease for the statement, and we voted
Yeah.
for it.
But the lease did not move forward, it's still being negotiated.
Okay.
Oh, right,
So-
that we did not vote on, you're
But
right.
yeah,
It was not voted on at the RTM,
Right,
but
but did vote it at this committee.
my understanding on that lease is it was pulled,
and then it was.
Right.
and the reason it was pulled is it has not been agreed to and
Yeah.
it is being negotiated. And our vote was crystal clear, if there were any changes, we would have to
Come back to us.
vote on it
So
again.
is it,
So unless,
I know it's premature to think too far ahead, but it sounds like it may be coming back to us
to
then,
the RTM, and therefore to us.
and therefore to us. Yeah, because
Presumably,
having listened to all
they
of
can
the-
sort all this out, even if they
things, there
can't.
are some things on that original
Yes.
lease that I would be rethinking.
Having listened to that back and forth at P and Z, I agree. I'd be rethinking it too.
Yep. So that lease, as best I can tell, it is not moving forward.
But they're still operating the facility without a lease.
That is correct.
In violation of whatever. Yes.
Okay.
Well, operating without a lease isn't in violation.
No, operating without a permit.
Yes, that's in addition to, yeah.
Yeah, the lease, nobody cares about the lease.
There's never really been a lease, is what I understood last time.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
There also was an article, did I forward the article from the Connecticut Examiner?
Yes.
Okay. Just keeping you guys in the loop. Town buildings. I forwarded a letter I received, or was.
Food trucks.
I'm sorry?
Food trucks.
Did I forward that? Who did I forward that to? You?
Yes.
Me.
Or to that, and the committee?
Yeah.
You want to touch on that?
Looked pretty cool.
Well,
On a federal
I don't know if
station.
that- yeah.
I think it's a great idea, but in listening to the Great Island discussion about the lease, I learned from, I can't remember who was speaking.
I think Kate.
Kate, who was representing
Town.
the town, that we are in the process of negotiating, or we've been trying to find concessionaires
Yeah,
for both train stations.
yes.
But I think
It's
I
about a
agree.
year,
I think
that
it's-
process is about a year in from what I hear. It's,
I think it's.
I know a
great
bit
idea.
about it, and it's been hung up, and Metro North, I think, is part of the problem.
For
They're the
what this is,
property
for those who didn't
Sorry, yeah.
get the email, Mr. Teschner sent a letter observing that there's a coffee truck at Rowayton train station where he's been commuting out of, I can't recall why. And have we considered?
To avoid all the people that are from New Canaan that are going to Darien, that's why he's going to Rowayton.
He's getting on before they do.
Oh, that's right, that's why he was going there temporarily. Anyway, what a great idea, have we considered that for Rowayton Heights and Darien? Now, I did ask a question, I'm not familiar with Rowayton to know, are there coffee shops and bakeries and delis like there are?
Not near that station.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but I was certain.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure, I want to wade into, if concessions are being pursued at Norotan and Darien like they've been there in the past, and then we've got lots of establishments already that are serving there.
So Greenwich has.
I don't know if there's a need or not, but wanted to share with the committee that
Greenwich
he was
is
asking the
interesting.
question.
Does it?
Yep,
Where do they have them?
on the other
Like the main
side.
station?
Yeah, the main station, not closest to town, but the other one.
The water
towards those
side?
Yeah, towards the water.
Okay.
They've got some good food trucks. Some tacos the other day. No, they do. They don't offer it every day, it doesn't look like.
Okay.
It looks like it's sort of staggered. But it was pretty cool.
But if the town, I didn't realize they were doing it, if the town has been negotiating for a year, and we still don't have concessionaires agreed, we're still emerging from COVID and traffic at the train station, although it was up substantially, take out the whole Buchanan thing, it's still up big. Why couldn't there be at least an interim solution to have And, you know, showing my ignorance, I'm not even sure if a food truck showed up, do they need to be permitted in order
They come to birthday parties,
to
right?
park? Well, it's
Yeah.
town property, that it's not even town property.
It's
It's
town
Town managed state.
Town managed property.
State
yeah.
property.
State
Who's going to
property,
enforce
town
it? I don't think a state trooper's going to show up and tell you, move the coffee truck.
I think if someone wants to do that, bring a food truck or a coffee truck in, I think they need to apply to the town for
You
a
need
permit, just like Mr. Softy or
A
the SB
commercial
guy.
license.
Right.
Yeah, but if they have a license to operate in, they can stop by work sites.
Yeah, no, I think
If
the
I'm-
ones, yeah.
if I'm
I'm not
homeless-
sure, but it would seem like you could just do it.
I'd
if there was-
stick,
if there
I'd
was a
stick
need or
one
anything.
across, I mean,
think
right
they
across
could
the
do
street,
it.
we lost all the revenue from you know, it all used to go to the Donut the Lake that was there,
Yeah.
right? And they're
Yeah.
gone,
Yeah.
and like, I don't know.
There's a new one opening there.
Michael's or Gregory's?
Gregory's opening, but it's a little bit of a walk up, so I don't know, if,
Yeah.
not that I wanna get business
Plus,
ideas.
there's a lot of
on
people that get on that
I'm like,
train
if I'm
very,
homeless,
very
I'd stick a
early.
food truck over there,
Yeah.
make some bank.
You know, you've got people that get on that train at 5:30 in the morning, and I don't think Greg's got to
Nothing's
be
open
open
at that hour.
at
that's
5:30 in the
thing.
morning.
Yeah, it would have to be for like specific hours, I think, when those types of places are not open.
But I don't know that we can really,
Yeah, I don't think it's,
we have anything to transact on
no,
that.
I don't think there is. I think if.
Other than if we come across one of those food trucks
Sounds like a
or
good
coffee
idea.
trucks, say, I gotta do that, I gotta do
And then
that.
they go with the
50%,
licensing or
so you
permitting,
I
whatever.
got a deal for you.
Yeah, I've got a deal for you.
Well, let them show up until we get a ticket.
Well,
Yeah.
that's their choice.
That's the way they're gonna do it.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything for us to act on that as well.
No, it's a great idea.
It is
Yeah,
an
it
interesting.
would be nice
idea.
to see something.
There were 3 transfers that I threw under the category of town and building. Actually, 2 under town and building and then 1 under railroad. So the one for the railroad,
Sorry, I missed one.
transfers at the last board of selectmen meeting.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Normally I don't talk about transfers except 3 topics were interesting. The first was a transfer of $50,000 to cover the low bid on the Norotan Heights Railroad Station parking drainage project. It came in, the bids came in higher than expected, plus the 6.6% contingency. So the uptick there is that's moving forward. That project, I think it said is starting,
Yeah, he wants to do it over summer.
yeah, late summer. Late summer, and they're gonna do it in phases so as not to take a huge block of parking spaces out of commission at the exact same time we've got.
So it's repaving?
Yeah, plus you got
No, this is
people from
putting
New
the
Canaan
drainage
coming in
on.
Oh.
now too.
Yep.
Oh,
Why are you kidding?
The New Canaan line has been shut down for the summer,
Oh, fun.
Yes.
so all of the New Canaan commuters have to scramble and find train service elsewhere, and certainly Darien is one of those locations.
In a weird way, having commuted for 21 years, it is good to see the parking lot filling up.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Not to say it's good to see people commuting, that's not what I'm saying.
No.
But it is good to see some semblance of the way life used to be coming back.
I sure know it seems that, you know, the first day that this happened, I was on one of those trains and it was standing in the aisles, it was like going into golf ball or something, it was crazy. And then they added cars. I don't get the trains, but they added more cars, so it seemed to spread out, so.
Another transfer that took place was $9,000, and this is for the new vehicle, the enforcement vehicle, came in over budget.
Parking enforcement,
That's the parking
The Ranger.
enforcement, the
parking
Ranger.
ranger.
Yes,
Get it straight.
for lights and striping decals, things of that sort. I think I threw that under,
It's like they
Railroad.
just need like a little tiny
Oh, this
smart.
is a long time ago.
Have to look official.
Yeah.
yeah, probably could have been an EV, but someone else. And the final thing, and then the transfer for the small gym, was that over budget as well? I think it was. Yes, the low bid came in, plus the 5% contingency, the request was for an additional $12,000. So a pattern I'm seeing here is everything's coming in over budget.
'Tis the season.
Yes, but those 3 projects.
Let's hope
are
that's not a
moving
trend.
forward. No, it's a trend.
There's some kind of trend.
Right.
Inflation certainly hasn't stopped.
So those are the topics I had for this evening, updates. I will pause there to see if anyone has anything they'd like to make sure we covered today.
Are we meeting in July and August, or do we take a recess as well?
I'm leaning right now,
It's on the calendar.
yes, I always
Okay,
go ahead and
just in
reserve the
case.
room.
Yeah,
Got
just-
it. I'm out of town.
I'm gonna-
I'll let you know.
Tentatively right now, thinking no July, no August, but I want to see the outcome of that next Board of Selectmen meeting.
Okay.
So generally, I'm gonna say no unless something rises to the level of we all should come in here and talk about.
I'm unlikely to do it.
Well, what might,
Yes.
what might come up is the Great Island
Right.
outcome.
Could we have a virtual meeting
Which
perhaps
outcome?
if required?
We can certainly, is that, let me ask about that, we can,
Because I'm definitely out of town on the date that our meeting is.
I can-
unfortunately.
I'll give you two answers to the question. Yes, I'm open to virtual meetings. No, I won't be there in July because I won't be anywhere that has cell silvers.
understood, understood. Is that something? folks here would like to-
Virtual, I think, of the day.
Yeah, fully up, fully
The
up.
last 2 weeks of July.
Is that comment related to July and August or just in general?
Good.
No,
I
July, August.
prefer in person
Yeah.
over virtual all the time,
Agreed.
except,
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
As a general premise, yes, I would agree that in-person is best, but
yeah.
given circumstances, I'm flexible.
okay.
So
So,
the 27th is the day we're talking about
Mhm.
yeah.
right
So
now.
I'm gonna leave them on the calendar just because they're already there.
Yeah.
But if usually if it's gonna be canceled, I like to try to do 5-day notice, 6-day notice. And we should know by then.
Yeah.
Okay.
That works, all right.
I do have a question that's not really Public Works related, but the town website seems to have the events listed, and I was looking at them and I see all the events, and I'm like, okay, that's the events. And then Rob was like, oh no, isn't there a parade on the 4th of July? And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. It's
Yeah,
not on
push-
the town.
Push-pull.
Push and pull parade.
Push-and-pull.
Yeah, so I dug through the internet, I combed through all of Google, and I finally found some information, but none of it is on the town website, and I'm
About push
just
pull?
baffled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it run by
Who
the
puts down, that's not run by the town, it's just
It
permitted.
is, so I found
It is?
like an article.
No, I don't think it's run by the town.
It's permitted by the town.
The VFW is involved in some way,
Yeah.
and it ends there, it starts at the high school. But then the article I read said the host is the town of Darien, and I'm like, so unless the news article I read was wrong, I'm just super confused.
Well,
It's
that was
totally
a
different than what it was when I had kids and stuff. It does start at the high school, like meanders down,
Starts at the high
down
school,
Leroy
goes
or
to the
whatever, and into the
VFW.
park. And
Yeah,
Yeah, it used to go down Main
it
Street.
used to go right down Main Street.
Yeah.
It used to start at Goodwives and go
Yeah,
right
right.
down Main Street,
That's
like,
how I run.
like a proper parade.
Yeah, and it ended
Yeah.
at Tilly Pond.
Yeah,
And then you
exactly.
have
So
the
now-
party at Tilly Pond.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now it starts at the high school and goes down and,
You wrote an avenue?
no, you're right.
yeah, and goes
We all
to the
understand why you
ends at the VFW, yeah.
Here it is,
It's
discussion.
always a surprise. But
How did it
So-
end?
so the Board of
It's
Selectmen-
anyway.
I didn't pay attention to that.
And it has a VFW's on their own, isn't it?
They talked about it in the
Yeah,
first one.
Well, they approved the
There we
permit,
go.
but I don't know who applied for the permit. I didn't think it was,
Okay.
It might go
wouldn't seem like
around
the town would have to apply.
and out in the road.
Maybe they do, I don't know.
I don't know, it's
Yeah.
super.
Anyhow,
Maybe
I
it's
just
a
started
VFW,
to-
I don't know, I just thought it was
Around
weird that I
that-
couldn't find
yeah.
it on the town's
Well,
website.
the town website is a tough
Triangle.
itself.
Yeah.
And then-
Well, sure.
It's a complete disaster.
So,
I read
If you have to go all the way to Tilly
It has
Pond.
room
It has
for
opportunity.
improvement. But I just thought it was a
Lots of
little.
upside. Get that right.
It's an opportunity-rich environment.
Maybe so. I just felt like.
before we kind of splinter into a bunch of conversation, I'll take a motion
You
to
go
adjourn.
straight down the road.
Second,
Right.
on the page.
You go-
All those in favor of adjourning?
Middlesex,
Aye.
Aye.
We just
We're
did
adjourned.
the-
We think they're-
We're just-